Hello and welcome to the next lesson, Case Study Number 7, Chat Application. Let's get started. Jiwoo is a community coordinator at a small nonprofit. She has trouble keeping her team of volunteers connected and informed. The volunteers are in different time zones and their communication spreads across several platforms. Jiwoo needs a dedicated chat application to facilitate collaboration and speed up responses to urgent tasks. Here are her requirements. The system must deliver real-time messages so volunteers can coordinate and respond quickly to urgent issues. The system must allow secure account creation and a login to ensure that only authorized volunteers can use the platform. Team members must review past conversations and access important information whenever needed. The application must efficiently handle many users simultaneously to support growing active users. The system should allow Jiwoo to add and remove volunteers and moderate conversations if necessary. All right, let's go to the design. Let's get designing the system. As we always start with, is we start with the user, okay? Give me 1 second to adjust this. Okay, let's get the user over here. Right, so again, here with, as you know, it's like certain different applications have like more need for authentication than others. One thing that Jiwoo was very particular about was that we wanted to make sure that this, like that access and account creation was secure. So we are going to start with, as we've done in previous case studies, with the authentication service in this scenario. We put our service connected to a key value store over here, and we call it the authentication service, okay? And then again, since that's, ensuring that only volunteers are able to access this, make sure the account creation is secure. We want to make sure that whoever gets the invite or whoever's creating it is who they are. So you want to add a two-factor code, two-factor authentication service here, or I should say, code workers, I should say. Because the idea is that the authentication service, just like we had in the previous case study, creates a code and then needs a mechanism for those codes to be emailed out. So we'll have that here. Let me move this over here. Okay, so I'm going to call this what I called earlier, two-factor code email workers. All right. All right. And then we have this go over here. I'm going to connect some of this stuff up already. The user connect to the authentication service. Let's move this to the front. Order, bring to front. All right. Have the authentication connected to the two-factor code worker to go back to the user so it gets emailed. All right. So we have this that aspect over this. Now, to give myself some more space, I'm going to move this up and you'll see why in a second. Chat application, we'll have a web service, right? So we're going to have a web service where after you authenticate, you actually, be able to interface with the actual application itself. So we go ahead and create that web service over here. Web service. I spelled that wrong. I got to get those emojis, right? Web service, right? So we go ahead, we move over here. Okay, we connect the authentication service to the web service. And then what's going to be very important is, of course, we want to make sure these chats are recorded. The chats are accessible to people. We want to make sure that history of all chats are being saved. But one thing to note is that this is a system of volunteers that G specifically is working on. So the number of the people using this has not been defined, but in experience, this is a great case to go ahead and start with a relational database, right? See how far that takes you. And if you find out that, this, we need to scale this scale this later on because of the number of volunteers, we can move forward. But you'll be surprised how much a relational database, especially when it's behind a service that can, you'll be surprised how much it can handle. And so in this system, you're going to notice that we're going for a more simplified design here because this system is made for one organization to have one person administering it. We want to go for simplicity gives robustness, because when you have fewer moving parts, you can be more sure that all these moving parts are working. We really want to have the most simple design for the actual application. Okay, so the idea here is that we're going to have this data layer service that will be able to handle people's accounts and ensure that like people are signed in properly, but it also will be a source of where the chat histories is going to be located. So I'm going to call this a data layer service. And just like I did in the social payment application with the transaction history service, I'm going to also call this a chat history service as well. When people want to be able to have get all the chats, they're able to access this right here. So we'll go overhead. We're going to connect this to here. All right, and then again, so first, we have the whole secure account creation. It's important. Team members must review past conversation to access important information whenever needed. That's why it's going to be saved in this relational database connected to the web service. And then the system should allow GWU to add, remove volunteers, and moderate conversations if necessary. Again, we're going simple here because it's a single application, a single admin. This path will also allow GWU to have an admin interface that will give her more permissions to be able to modify the information here, which is, manage adding or removing volunteers and moderating messages. We're not gonna, right now, again, for simplicity, a relational database can have multiple databases, multiple tables within a database, so we can handle all of these aspects within a database, and actually gives them a further benefit that you allow that single database to make sure that the schema, the structure of the tables, what is in each table is consistent, because it's all within its own one application. So we'll allow that to have this. Now, though, we have to remember that one of the first requirement was delivering real-time messages. If you heard that, then, and if you listen to the previous case studies, you'll know what's coming next. We want real-time communications. That's when queues do very well here, okay? So in this case, we have a real-time notification service that's going to be a service connected to a queue. And I'm going to call this here. And the reason we have this is that I'm going to call it real-time notification service, is that we want this service to be an internal service available for this user, so that anytime, any instance where it makes sense for a message to be sent, a message that needs to be broadcasted, we want this service to be able, an internal service to be able to be ready to be accessed, so that we can send a request in and we can send that queue out. And remember, with queues, you can have multiple users subscribe to the same queue. And so therefore, if you send it out and it's supposed to hit 10 people, 10 people can get that message, and that's all handled in the queue itself. So that is what makes this, that's what makes queues powerful, this ability to subscribe to different queues. And if you connect the service to it, you give the ability for your internal application to be able to send a message to a bunch of users, and all they have to do is worry about getting the message ready and sending it to the right queue in order to do so. And this also gives us the ability, which interestingly enough, that must efficiently handle many users simultaneously to support growing active users. This is what I mentioned here, is that, again, though, since, you'll hear this, like, oh goodness, I need this application is going to serve all these users and it's going to be growing and stuff. And then you may have the urge to do some of the other things that we mentioned, to like with caching and you can even move to auto scaling, just like, oh, we have to make sure this happens. In my experience, right, when it comes, especially when you hear like a single organization, a single, aspect, go ahead and go with your relational database backed by a service and see how far that takes you. You will be very surprised how much this can handle. But what we're doing, though, is that we're making sure that we move off the real-time notification part of this into this queue system. so that people are not refreshing the service all the time, handling the data layer service to do that. So that's the weird thing that like this, not weird, but if you think of it this way, this real-time notification service is acting like a cache in a sense. I'm not saying that people are hitting their, people are going to the cache and things are being saved, but you are eliminating a reason why somebody needs to go to the web service. The primary reason being to get in these real-time updates. This real-time notification service handles that. So people only really going to the web service to see chat history or for GWU to administer the application. This may just very well be enough. It could easily be enough for a single organization to have a chat application that's efficient, real-time, and scalable. So this is one of those things that's just like you can, even though you have these mechanisms in your repertoire in order to make sure things are available, sometimes it's best to really understand what the situation is calling for, what the situation is, what the stakeholder really wants, and then just say, hey, let's start with this. Let's see how that goes. And there's ways to expand from there. So, and this is our system, a very simple, straightforward system. You have the authentication service and the two-factor code email workers focusing on authentication and security. You have the web service where people can access history and logs, where GWU can administer the users of the application and do moderation. And then we also have the real-time notification to notify. Oh yeah, and I also in addition to the simplification, to going with a simple service, content moderation in this case would be manual. It's one person. They have the choice to look through the messages, which is also could be provided by this data layer service, chat history service. Maybe I'll even add, just to make it clear, chat moderation service, just to make it clear that you can have this single data layer service that has multiple features, especially when we want to keep things simple. Okay, so yeah, so this is our system. So let's go to our takeaways. First key takeaway. Here's another instance where we use a queue for real-time notifications, a system that's not just efficient, but also highly scalable. A queue can have multiple users subscribe to it, so any updates or messages on that queue can be delivered to multiple users simultaneously without additional infrastructure. This setup also alleviates the web service by eliminating users needing to refresh the application to receive updates repeatedly. Second key takeaway. This case study showcases another instance where we use two-factor authentication to increase the security of the application. Since it's paramount that only volunteers gain access to the system, we add two-factor authentication to provide another layer of protection to fulfill that requirement. Third key takeaway. Since it's applications for internal use within the organization, the system is designed for GWU to review content manually instead of using more automated tools like AI models. In this case, the system can handle moderation entirely within the data layer. This trade-off simplifies the design of the system. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.